Take a second to look at your thumb. Over the last 24 hours, that single digit traveled roughly 1,400 feet, the entire height of the Empire State Building, dragging your consciousness across hundreds of fragmented realities. You likely blame yourself for the exhaustion that follows. You tell yourself you lack discipline, or that you're just being lazy. But your screen fatigue is the result of an asymmetric war. You are up against thousands of behavioral engineers at companies like this, whose professional survival depends on the micro-manipulation of your dopamine baseline. Your inability to focus is the intended outcome of this digital architecture. It is a focus baseline systematically disassembled by engineering teams. The back-end data of these short-form platforms reveals the first milestone of this process, a metric known as the 3-second executioner. Over 70% of users abandon a video before the 3-second mark. If a piece of media fails to provide a hyper-stimulating spike of novelty instantly, the algorithm buries it. This trains your brain to run high-speed triage on reality itself. You stop looking for what is objectively valuable and start hunting for a spike of novelty that hits every millisecond. This conditioning makes the physical world feel sluggish. It becomes difficult to give a slow-talking person more than 3 seconds to make a point before your internal monologue starts demanding a swipe. In 2004, an average knowledge worker at the station could sustain focus on a single screen for 2.5 minutes before shifting attention. Today, that threshold has plummeted off a statistical cliff. The average is now just 43 seconds. We often tell ourselves we've simply become faster at processing information. Neurological data shows we are bouncing between microstimuli at a velocity that exceeds the biological refresh rate of human cognition. We aren't processing, we are panic switching. Inside an MRI machine, the live scans of heavy short-form users stop looking like a resting mind and start looking like a localized lightning storm. Swiping every 15 seconds subjects the brain to 240 microdopamine hits an hour, the 240-hit hammer. To protect itself, the prefrontal cortex physically prunes its own dopamine receptors and dedicated focus pathways. This biological restructuring is a silent cognitive amputation. Your biology is following a command to never hold a single thought for longer than 60 seconds ever again. Even when you put the phone face down, the synthetic brain fog remains. You expect to feel recharged, but your working memory is still trapped. This is attentional residue. You swipe from a tragic story to a jumping cat to a real estate tour. The visual disappears, but mental files stay open. Your mental RAM stays pegged at 100% capacity, running invisible ghost software that drains your cognitive resources long after the screen is off. Eventually, that ghost software leaks into the physical world. You see it when you try to read a dense 10-page chapter of a physical book. Your eyes will automatically default to an F-shaped scanning pattern. As this heat map illustrates, you hunt the page for bullet points or bolded text, desperately seeking a dopamine payoff that doesn't exist. Your restructured prefrontal cortex is actively rejecting linear reading as an inefficient legacy system. Losing the biological hardware for linear reading locks the mind out of the state required for complex synthesis and deep work. This neurological shift explains the quiet, lingering dread that often manifests right before you fall asleep. If your focus baseline is 43 seconds, the most profound parts of the human experience become inaccessible because they refuse to be optimized. Mastery of a discipline requires boring repetition. Stable relationships require sitting through awkward, unstimulating silence. Self-awareness requires being alone with the thoughts the infinite feed is designed to drown out. These behavioral algorithms strip mine the raw cognitive material required to construct a stable, coherent human identity. Neuroplasticity is value neutral. The brain will wire itself to whatever it practices most, which means this process can be reversed. Standard digital detoxes fail because they treat a physically restructured brain like a bad habit. A weekend retreat in the woods cannot repair a biological shift that requires the equivalent of physical therapy. The repair happens through friction engineering. You must deliberately reintroduce a 10-second void of boredom between a digital impulse and its execution. When the urge to open a new tab hits, you force your hands to remain flat on the desk for 10 seconds. You force the prefrontal cortex to sit inside the fire of its own withdrawal. You rebuild the focus cliff one unoptimized second at a time. reclaiming a mind capable of authoring a life that belongs to you.